The sound of Tintin. So that's it, we have to go on the air. Hello to everyone who is on the broadcast. I look at YouTube, there is even someone. Happy New Year holidays to all of you. It's time to lift the muzzle out of the salad and finally launch some new activities in the new year. And we'll start with roasting the toy mechanic in numbers. I still can't remember 8230. And we have a developer visiting today. And I'm probably going to start with the question of whether these numbers mean anything at all. Well, you can say just something about the game, what it is in general, and so say a few words. And introduce yourself, of course. Yes, hello. Hello, everyone. My name is Igor. The numbers, yes, really mean something, but it will be a spoiler about the game, what to say. It means a kind of world at the back of the universe, where the actions take place on the planet Bifrost, where 3 types of creatures live.
Некий мир на задворках Вселенной, где действие происходит на планете Бифросте, где обитают 3 типа существ.
These are some mutants, that is, mutants and robots, but there are 2 types of mutants. These are morsoms, and crocoli morsoms are weaker creatures, but they also live in caves. And crocoli are stronger creatures that live right on the surface, that is, they are not harmed by the harsh reality of post-apocalyptic reality. Our main character is a mechanic, his name is. He somehow finds an extraordinary robot in a scrapyard, which he has not seen yet, and as if out of curiosity. But he could not resist curiosity and repairs it in his workshop. Then the guards break into him, and this is where the adventure begins.
Механик, его зовут Вига, он как-то находит на свалке металлолома робота необыкновенного, которых он еще не видел. И как бы из любопытства, не устоял от любопытства и чинит его у себя в мастерской, потом к нему вламывается стража, и вот с этого начинается приключение.
That is, because of this robot, his identity is almost erased there, and he begins to escape.
И он начинает побег.
Well, it's difficult without spoilers. I'll be able to tell you about the plot. That is, you start telling already. With some moments of such plot that are only revealed. Not here, it's just that I'm trying very basic, so that yes. But we're talking about the second episode, and the second episode is already more. This is more about the disclosure of the robot. That is, he is already at the station of this space station, where they flew after the escape. That is, the escape is when they flew to the station, on a shuttle. That is, we reveal the robot, yes. Well, that's if very much in general, yes. I'm the only one, I can hear myself in headphones. I don't know how it is. Listen, I also don't know how it should be done from your side somehow, because... Yes. Well, I can hear myself, but I have a sound card, and I can hear myself. Oh, wait a second, I'm going to take a look. So, if I disconnect, and you can open the sound on the broadcast, maybe you have the sound on the broadcast going and on the broadcast, and maybe for a second, and you just hear the broadcast. Yes, I'm stupid, yes. It's even hard to say yes because of this. But I want to say a few words just to say that this is the second episode. The first episode has already been released. And you can play it, which I actually did when it came out, and on one of the previous roasts, you basically already saw this game, which I spoke quite positively about, and I would like to watch the second episode as well. Well, right away, since I'm a good policeman here today, I'll note again the stylish menu, like last time, by the way. Even it seemed more pretentious to me, maybe due to the line of movement of these wires that were there. Well, I can't open the second one right away, too, but the first one seems to me, it was more pretentious, the second one was quieter. Such a picture on the main menu, but there were more animations than there. So here's a like for the main menu. I always say that the main menu is what the player sees first, and here it's very even. A little more fun, right? Yes, yes, that is, there was such a gloomy pathos, some kind of seriousness, well, straight fierce. It's a little quieter here. I do not know how much this correlates with the atmosphere of the game, well, the second episode. In general, Ego is the first episode there. This city is generally harsh, and that is, it is quite justified. But here, well, clearly yes, there will not be, let's say, artificial intelligence, which spoils the life of all these guys. Yes, by the way, I didn't say about him, but there's artificial intelligence running the city there. And there's a lot of things tied up with him there. He is the main antagonist. Well, I'm probably going to ask this question again. I don't really like this question. I'm often asked it. Because I'm also developing a sequel in my game. And why is the sequel the first game at all? Well, of course it's cool, awesome. And I really liked it, but there are a little less than 100 reviews. It's clearly not thousands, tens of thousands there and hundreds of thousands of what the desire to make a sequel is based on. Well, it's just that I'm also asked this question. I understand that not even tens of thousands of reviews are still decent earnings. And it's not necessary to assume that if the game, well, didn't shoot a straight cannon. It doesn't mean that the developer didn't get anything with first of all. I'm just for the audience because you don't always know where the income can come from there from the console and so on. But still many audiences have a question why a sequel and not something new, not something. Well, maybe on the mistakes of the previous ones, but what is there create something new? Why the sequel? No, well, sometimes I switch to some other projects, sometimes I want to switch my brain there. But in this case, it's generally easy to explain everything. Initially, so thinking about it, the three parts initially, that is not so that it did not begin after the completion of the first episode. There, the development of the second and third began during the development of the first. That is, here it is exactly like that. Why exactly did they share the whole story? This is rather a question that was divided, because they did not pull. That is, we would not have pulled all three, but this whole idea, as if this one could not have been implemented in those, well, how would it have dragged on for, say, 10 years or whatever? And so we are in 6 years. Well, in general, too long, yes. Well, yes, 6 is not 10, as it were, but it doesn't matter. Well, imagine, and here we were already gaining experience. It's getting a little easier now anyway, yes. Well, in other words, you still have a slightly different story. You initially made a whole game, and just divided it into 3 pieces, in fact, yes, but not so that you made one first. And then decided to make a sequel. Well, it was even when everything was scripted, it was divided, because it was clear that even there are 19 non-locations, 19 checkpoints, and they are enough for 6 years to count. Well, imagine how many things there were, it was even a little sad to describe it. Well, on the one hand it's cool, there's experience, but on the other hand, you know yourself. It's not clear, well, it's just that I didn't have such a thing with my development, that I had the second part in my plans conditionally. When I do the first one, that is, my motivation is slightly different, that I wanted to keep the audience from the first part, and yet, it was at least some kind of no. And many people just ask this question, based on the fact that you didn't earn trillions of dollars on the first part, why? No, of course, in general, this topic is about earnings. It's a little bit wrong with the question. That's how it's not about success at all. It's more about, well, as you know, I actually started it. Well, that's not exactly game dev. But it was this topic that I started since childhood, that is, I drew comics there at school. It's clear that it didn't go anywhere, but it was so cosmic. That is, this cosmic story, in a sense, it was not specifically this kind of story, but this very one. How can I say this one? This image was realized in the end exactly like this. I thought at first they
Этот
might be
образ
animating
он,
her somehow.
реализовал в итоге именно так. Я думал сначала, может, в анимации как-то ее.
Well, I tried
Пытался
at
сначала
first,
вот,
when I was studying
когда вот
three-dimensional
изучал
modeling, and
трехмерное
so on and
моделирование и
so
так далее,
on.
и так далее.
That
То
is,
есть
I
думал,
thought that I would
что
implement this in all sorts
всякими
of ways.
способами реализовать вот это.
That is, to tell a certain story, let's say,
Рассказать
and in
некую
some way,
историю.
such a cosmic one in the
Вот,
spirit
ну,
of Star
космическую.
Wars, you know,
В духе
like this.
«Звездных войн», знаешь, вот такое.
And later, it
А
became clear that
уже
it was
именно
possible through the game like this.
попозже вот стало понятно, что
It's
можно
perfect.
вот так через
It's
игру,
like
это идеально,
everything
там
is
сочетать
intertwined,
всё,
and
и фантазия,
animation,
и
and the
анимация,
book,
и
roughly
книга, грубо
speaking.
говоря, там,
There's a lot of
чуть-чуть.
everything. Super
Супер
interesting,
интересно,
really.
на самом деле.
Creativity is more like for you. That is,
Это
that's
100%.
100%.
То есть,
That is,
ты
you
вот
understand
понимаешь,
when we just started, no one
когда
knew
мы
anything
только
about the
начинали,
project.
в
That
этом
is,
проекте
I
никто
said to
ничего не
myself,
знал. То есть я
that
себе так
even if they
сказал,
just
что
find out
даже
about the
если плохо
project,
узнают
that
о
is,
проекте,
that's how much they
то
will
есть вот
find out
сколько
there.
там
I
узнаем,
don't
не
know
знаю
how much.
сколько.
This is
Это
already
уже
cool.
круто. И
And they found
узнали
out. A bunch
куча
of
со
people
всего
from
мира
all
людей
over the
играет.
world play like
Нравится
they
им
still
это,
imagine.
кстати.
That
То
is,
есть это
it's cool people
круто.
imagine. Yes, in
Люди,
general.
представь,
Localize. You know that mechanics localizes
знаешь,
for
что
free.
механика
People are just
локализует
enthusiastic
бесплатно
about
будет
it.
вот на
We have, by the
интеграции.
way. That is,
На разные
into
языки.
different languages. Yes, this is cool. We don't have localization. Our guys were engaged in professional work. That is, well, they didn't translate. But our fans conditionally edited it for free.
А,
And well,
ну тут
here
я
I
не
do not
знаю,
know
тут
the fans are
фанаты.
not
Ну,
fans.
предлагали
Well,
люди вот с
people
Китая,
offered here
считай,
from
с
China,
Китая двое,
consider. From
с
China too, with Japan, with
Японии,
Spain, from different countries.
Испании, с разных стран,
Brazilian,
считай,
think about it,
бразильский,
there
прикинь,
is.
есть.
Awesome.
Офигеть.
And
И
it's kind of
это
free.
как бы бесплатно.
Well,
То есть люди
people
как бы сами
themselves would
хотели
like to
это
make,
сделать,
improve, let's say, and
улучшить,
that their
скажем так, и
compatriots
чтобы
played,
их
as they say.
соотечественники поиграли, как
Well,
говорится.
then they really liked the story, once. Well,
Ну да,
yes,
так об
that's the
этом
point.
дело, видишь, здесь
You
делаешь
see,
как
here
бы
you are
клёвую
doing a
вещь
kind of
сам,
cool thing
сам.
yourself. Here you are, as if you
Сам
yourself
понимаешь, что
understand
это
that it is
качественно,
qualitative.
ну,
It seems to justify this
оно
in
как бы
fact.
и это и оправдывает, по сути.
But that's
Но
exactly why
именно вот
financially I'm
финансово
not
я не
saying
говорю,
that
что
it's
оно
not
не
important,
важно, но
but it's not in the first
оно
place.
не стоит на первом месте.
That's
Это
100%.
100%.
It's
Ну,
more like
скорее,
we're
вот
doing it
мы
now,
щас вот
I'm
делаем,
doing the
я
second
делаю
episode
сейчас
now,
вот
and the
второй
third
эпизод,
episode is already
и
in development
параллельно
in
идет
parallel.
и третий эпизод уже
That is,
разработки.
sketchily and
Стилистно, и
scenario-wise.
сценарно, то
That
есть
is,
оно всё
well,
уже,
everything is already there.
там, ну,
Well,
скажем,
let's
условно,
say conditionally
19 те же
19 of the
уровней,
same levels.
там не
There
факт,
is
что
not the fact
19
that
там
there will be
по-другому.
19 there in a different way. But we will
Но
also cut them off in the same
мы
way.
тоже их
It
так же
turns out that
самое
the
вот,
story turns out to be there
обрубим,
with some kind of
получается, историю.
completeness. As it
Ну
will
да,
have
с
some kind of
каким-то
completeness, but
завершенностью.
nevertheless,
Завершенность
there will
какая-то у него
still be a
будет, но
direct
тем не менее там
continuation
всё равно
later.
потом
It is the
именно
third
другое
episode
продолжение
that
будет
is
идти.
also a
Третий
direct
эпизод тоже другое
continuation.
продолжение.
So you
Всего
only
3
know
эпизода,
3
ты
episodes,
знаешь,
right?
да?
Well, yes, I know the plans. Well, in general, I can say that you are one of the few who holds this position, creativity above money. Because now I have been in the community, for as long as I have been, marketers have come to the community. That is, first of all, marketers are now steering the process and are being developed. I
Я
understand.
понимаю. И вот
And here I am far from this marketing, as I am not a marketer
Я
and
не
not.
маркетолог и
Well,
не,
you know, I'm more of an
понимаешь,
artist,
я
or it's
скорее
hard to say a
художник
lot of
или
things. That is,
сложно сказать.
everything I like is what
Много
I
чего.
do.
То есть все, чем нравится, тем и занимаюсь.
That's
Вот
it.
так.
And that's how game dev
как-то
turned out to
оказался
be a
клёвым
cool way to tell a
способом,
story.
Рассказать некую историю.
That's how
Вот
it
так
turns out.
получается.
And in the game, what are you doing? The text of the animation model, that is, what is done by you and what is not by you at all. And the joke is that initially we developed the same project on Berg, and you know what Berg is? Yes, this engine in a blender, which was once it was then cut out, and since I couldn't walk, I was an artist and did it on these bricks. That is visual programming. Then, when there were already some conditions, that is, the concept was already assembled in fact, that is, there was actually a working game there, but a programmer had already joined us, they searched for a long time. Because it was necessary to do everything without bugs, you know, I wanted to do everything without bugs. We searched for a long time, but we didn't find programmers on Go, but we found programmers on Gadget. And the project was transferred, and that's when the programmer joined, so he took some part on himself. That's what it's all about. And it was already easier. I'm also developing with Katerina. That is, initially Katerina and I developed the project. The artist also took over a part of it. The programmer now took over. And here is the composer. He makes music, Alexander Zhivanov. Here he is from Moscow, Katerina she. She lives with me, but this spouse turns out to be a programmer too, like a cake. I do not know who knows the Silicon and Arctic project, and Life is the creator of these games. He has already joined, as it were, with experience, endured an awesome job done. I'm just in shock. And in the end, everything turned out quite well for us. That is, I myself would not have assembled so qualitatively, so he wrote the mechanics there correctly, as it should be. And in the end we get it. In general I do everything, but there are those who help, that is, what part of the art Katerina does. And the programmer has already left. In other words, he left the project, and I had to study programming for the second episode, and already walk myself. That is, now Katerina is doing most of the act, because I just don't know how well, you know. Well, it's clear that I also can't do everything in one, and I thought for a long time that everything can be done in one, but then it still comes to an understanding that there are people more professional than you, and why push this wall? But in general, I look at the team is still not very big, and for such a small team it seems to me to make such a level qualities are very cool. Well, I generally repeat today that I am a good policeman today. I really like this project. And I respect of course your position that money is not the main thing, the main creativity is there and all this. But my soul always pours with everything possible when I see a high-quality project that, well, deserves more in my opinion. Also pours when. But now such a time is just now an oversaturated market, and everything is clear. And we also woke up just at the beginning of the events, as they say. And I'm like, you know, I'm the only one. That's when I thought that, well, it would be cool to have more money. This is when I opened a company out of my stupidity, and lost a lot of money, actually because of this. Well, I got the experience, as they say. And then, when it was necessary to pay this accountant, there to keep him there for how long a year, I practically kept this company. And that's when I wanted, of course, to have more income. But it's just because it's a kind of added obligation, but not because the programmer was just more upset, that's clear. Well, you can understand him, but not that he was upset there. You know, I'm not saying that he didn't pay for himself at all. That is, I do not know how the programmer thinks now, but it was on the release that the project showed itself so-so. But then on discounts, in principle, it's not so bad. If you look at it now, then everything is fine. I will not, of course, call the numbers the secret of the company. Not well, I don't ask the numbers. I don't really call myself either, because for someone it is. It seems a little too much for someone. Yes. No one in short will do it better. Someone will envy, someone will gloat, as if why it is necessary. I never disclose. That's why, well, thank you for such a story in general about the history of the project. I think it's interesting to listen to such pitfalls about development, and in general how it all sounds. I'm really pleased to hear about the importance of creativity, and I still like to cling to these projects, which are very authorial. Very much with a soul like me. As if it didn't sound so pathetic, yes. Thanks for the kind words too, yes. In general, a mechanic, gave us a lot of things with Katerina. In fact, he gave us a lot. Because we taught at the university for 3 years before this year, we also taught a specialty for 3 years, in fact. We founded this game design there. But this doubt is not a game design, there is a game artist rather like this. And so I think at the expense of the mechanic, that is, somehow it all turned out so smoothly. They helped consider even students, they did some of their projects there and so on, well, in general, among other things. There are things like this that still follow. And when will the second episode be released and what are the plans? Well, I hope, well, you know, as usual, I hope that 2025 is there, but who knows, that is, I can't say now. Now there's about 70% probably ready already, that is. Right here you can safely say but how it goes there, you know how the grinding itself is ideally good. Give it at least a few months just for tests, for. Well, even when you're ready, you think you're ready, but it's better to polish it anyway. Well, yes, I understand it was my first mistake in general, that I thought that as soon as I was ready, I should immediately post it. We were in a hurry with the first episode. We were in a hurry too, I didn't really want it, but it turned out that way. Because when you have, well, when it only depends on you, you can pull as much as you need, but when you have people joining there, that's when it's harder. So I guess let's ask one more question, and I'll start playing very scrupulously, because it's so hard to listen and play at the same time, and sort out what's going on here. I'm going to ask a question about the genre. Do you have a fairly classic point-click? Are there any thoughts about how to diversify it with something modern? That is, there is such a thought again among the indie developers community that click in its pure form is no longer very relevant now, and did not give up to anyone. Probably there will be two such questions. How does the audience react to the classics? Because, in fact, the classic is clicked, and well, what does the team itself think about it? And are you thinking of inventing something, adding a modern one to this side? The audience is mainly the one who loves classic points and clicks, I think so. Maybe there are exceptions, but I think that the most important thing to diversify is a good scenario. That is, this is the most important thing. Then you have to add some kind of zest, you know, a zest, that is, so that there is some kind of chip in the game. Which, well, you haven't seen such a game yet, you know, this is something, and you can find it only here. Is a zest that is only in this game or this developer, roughly speaking. That's it. Well, betting on the script is a good point for me personally, again. I've just been bending a little bit under this marketing story lately too, that I always think about how to sell it well. I can't. I couldn't stay on the dark side. Well, I see. I'm going out slowly and I can't. That's how it turned out. I always said games are art, these salesmen. Ugh. But now I'm still starting to think a little bit in this direction, to be jaundiced there in marketing my games and so on. Here. Therefore, this can be understood in principle, because, well, basically so. And especially when you see how many games come out there a day, it's of course willy-nilly thinking about something about the dark side. Maybe it's not so bad just. Well, yes, but I try to combine everything, as it were, so that creativity does not leave, of course, from development. But focusing on the plot is cool. That is, I support it. But again, I understand that it's hard to be marketed with a plot. That is, it's certainly cool, and I think that in general, this is the main problem in general now in games, is the lack of a normal plot. And screenwriters and people in this area, so this is a big plus from me. And I can't say that we have a super well thought out plot, but for me it's enough that such a head is enough anyway. That is, not everything is in order. What it will be like this. As if the main thing is that I like it, but in the end, because now I really like it, especially in recent days. Some things have been done so cool there. Well, that is, they are just pleasing. But in general, yes, the script is always the script. Well, funny puzzles, because in this case, it's a point-click with puzzles. Here, unlike the first episode, it will be more interesting here. I think even if you play, you will already feel it. We didn't understand some things until the end in the first episode. That is, let's say there was this, bring it, give it this classic then there was. Well, they didn't understand exactly how to do the structure of the levels. The level was not always sharpened under. He was sometimes sharpened for puzzles, and not for scenarios, and for some. Now, in short, here's the gist of it. Now we have the whole level, it's one solid puzzle. And this is what I consider the growth, compared to the previous one here, is the previous part. Although there are also levels where, in principle, everything is fine. But there are some where, well, a little. Well, all right. At least there are people who kind of see it and say it, and it's good that they actually say it. So well, I'll probably start playing slowly. Come on, come on. Comment on what is happening on the screen. While we were chatting, a plot slipped through there. I tried to read it with one eye. But why did he pass without me? Well, that is, I have to click. And you point at this dialog box, it will stop. There is a scale like this you see at the bottom. If you point, it stops. And, that is, if I had pointed the mouse, nothing would have gone without me. She has nowhere to go. So start over is not a problem. No. If you want, if you don't want, then. As part of the stream, I still don't read it so thoughtfully, but... Okay, yes. Rather, I was confused by the fact that he skipped faster than I wanted, and I thought that there was no possibility. No, well, you could find fault there, say too much text and all that. Don't listen. I think that when it's a story game, your pictures changed, you changed the events there a little bit. That is, not. I often find fault with the fact that there are a lot of texts at the beginning if it's about some bullshit. Well, in terms of the hero's thoughts, some superfluous or nothing. Yes, here in defense, I will say that yes, it is all justified. Then it should be straight here. Because the answers are needed to the questions that arose, well, during the first episode, and they had to, well. They open right here at the beginning because he lost consciousness there and the robot took him away. Now it kind of starts with the fact that here he wakes up and answers questions. That is, he asks questions to the robot. Well, by the way, it was also great that there was a backstory, like what was in the previous series. It seems to me with this. In the beginning it wasn't. This, by the way, was kicked there after Igroprom, and decided to add, yes, after all. But it must be done, I think, even if you expect that you will sell the first episode there to the bundles. Or only to those who played the first episode anyway. Clearly yes. Because there is no way without it. There will still be people who downloaded only the second episode. There is no one clue if double-clicking it accelerates the character. We also added this during the Igroprom, by the way. But this is in general. Igroprom is not bad at everything, let's just say. There was a good feedback there. Double-click is a classic, but not everyone remembers it anymore. With us, we didn't have acceleration, that's the thing. And you know why it wasn't, because there were usually small locations, there wasn't much needed. But here there were chips of space. Is there a highlighting of all elements? Yes, right here now there is no in this game unfortunately, yes so far. Not well, I don't even know well. In general. It's well, that is, casual players need it. Point it. Oh, you mean highlighting everyone? No, it's not necessary, it's not 100% not necessary. Let everyone love to have it. Looking for. I understand. Let them love in this case. There are no compromises. But it seems to me, in fact, then the gameplay is lost. That is, I generally believe that it is the same. The word gameplay that you need is active. No, well, we don't have pixel and hunting. Here everything is visible on the water. There is a backlight. Well, yes. What's the problem? So, there I missed with the wires. They explained something to me, in my opinion, but I didn't really read it. Read it carefully. And here there is a second time, they will tell me about it, that's if. And, here he will say okay, that's it. The wiring here is multicolored, but I bake only a green shade. Well, I understand that these are puzzles, it's just that it's usually hard to understand what's what on the stream. And sit down to figure it out. But that's the
Ну,
point after
в этом и
all.
суть все-таки.
I need it now. As if there is enough illumination of wires like this, I will click and something will happen. It is a little unclear that it is active. Well, that is, not a little, but it is not clear, because it is not highlighted. You seem to have everything highlighted everywhere, but here.
Вот именно
That's
тут не
exactly where it is
подсвечивается,
not
да.
highlighted. Yes, yes, there is such a glitch.
Это
We'll
поправим.
fix it. So well, since I am. This is because, this is due to the fact that just now I was studying this script from Gadget programming language, and as if I didn't understand everything, when it's just a flaw, but it's not critical.
Это просто недоработка. Но она как бы не
What to do?
критическая.
Because I am.
А,
Otherwise, I will take a long time to figure it out. Do you think I remember what to do there? Now, let's see.
щас
So,
посмотрим. Так,
well, if the developer himself does not know what to do there, go to the console and push the buttons. So first of all with the remote control. Here now, the robot said that he sees only green tones.
Он видит только
Yes,
зелёные
yes,
тона,
yes.
понимаешь?
You see, that is, he does not see colors, but there are actually colored wires there. But for me, is that understandable? Yes, people usually understand, yes. How would I check already? Speed it up with a double click. And then she went down somewhere else. Well, I really am. I have a broadcast, yes. Yes, I realized that my broadcast is lagging behind. In fact, there is still such a thing, that I understand that it should be difficult. But I understand that it should be difficult. I have been dealing with a modern audience for a long time, and I strongly believe now that it is necessary to do some hints as much as possible. No, there's enough here actually. It's just that you see us talking, and you're playing. Naturally, I'm not a bus driver to do all this at the same time. Yes, yes, yes. And there is also such a thing, in fact, already canonical, like if a player suffers for a long time. Then he has some kind of question appears as an additional hint, well, like for the stupid. And he can press the question and say to him, well, you're a fool, but click this there here conditionally. Look, you see, you haven't really stayed anywhere yet. In fact, if you stay a little longer, you'll still find some kind of clue. Well, that is, there is such a system that I am something. Yes, in any case. Here is the text, in fact, the main tips with the text read the main thing. You see, you kind of read it, but most likely you didn't get into it. Well, naturally. When you play yourself, you delve into enough, and here it's kind of clear. Well, by the way, what else do I like that compared to the first part? There is a scale of some kind right at the first location. Well, there was that you were literally sitting in your closet at the beginning there. Yeah. And here you are conditionally demonstrating the charm of the game without immediately forcing the player to sit there in one room. It's fun. Well, yes, it's a little bit powerful, isn't it? Well, yes, more scale, more locations at once. You pile more content on the player at the beginning of the project. It's always cool because, yes, well, as if it were necessary to immediately bring down the content. It is not necessary to slowly smear this butter on bread with a thin layer, otherwise no one will get to it. I'll tell you more here exactly all the locations. They are built exactly according to the script. That's cool. Well, in this case it's such a step forward, as if compared to the first part, in the first part. There was such a thing often when the location was created, and then they came up with what would be there at all. Here it's strictly going here it's necessary to do this, he will come here, we need to show this, well, exactly according to the script. In other words, everything is taken into account here. Well, in general, a different approach. Well, I was in the first episode for a long time a pencil case of one friend. He is well versed, Well, not specifically Ken in this, but he generally fumbles well in the game Virgo. In mechanics, as a game designer, you know, and here he kicked me specifically. This is the kind of, let's say, tough critic who is tougher than I am to myself. That is, this and he, as it were. Thanks to him, I will now be able to more or less put it all together somehow. It was the teacher, imagine. And he appeared exactly when I started like this in the dark. You know, I started a project, and a person appeared, who began to criticize. And then I asked him to criticize me exactly. Well, not exactly like that, but you got the idea. Exactly so that already. Learn by yourself. We started communicating. Somewhere. So I studied no, well, here in the country in which I live here, you won't really go somewhere to study. That's exactly in the game world here is not developed at all. We tried it in Moldova. Here we tried to create something, but as if in the end, we helped the country a little bit, I think we still helped. Well, on the contrary, the niche is empty, then create your own truth. It seems to me that a lot of people will be willing to study, if not, if there is no such thing. No, there already is. Already in 3 universities. 3 universities have opened a specialty here, this game design. Their animation has already appeared there. That is, when we came in some way, you know, how life is just like that. Everything gathered in a bunch like that. And in this one from the Ministry of Education, or firm where there I do not know they came, they wanted to this is all to develop. And we somehow came. Imagine, this is a coincidence. Well, somehow it all fused together, yes. Here the question in the chat is why the setting was a space astronaut dreamed of becoming in childhood, that is, where exactly the hobby is from. Star Wars is purely stellar. I adore them, I just don't know. Well, in general, I adore the space theme, yes. And I say, as if in the beginning I said that in the beginning I drew such children's comics, as if still at school. Then and now I have this idea to implement this. That's something that has been for a long time, but how to implement it? Already, well, in the end it turned out that through a game chip. And there was no specific scenario, just a certain image that I want to implement. This is how it looks like. I hope I answered the question. Not well, I answered. I think there just might be something else additional there is in principle that I have. I just love, yes, the space theme. I like the Stargate. I like that there's still a Firefly there, you know, that's all the series Neuro reviewed. Space, I love this Citytone, it's in space there was a rhinoceros. I like this shape so much. This cylindrical one, there is also one there. Well, someone thinks it's from Kinzidza, but in fact it's not. It's from space. Pepelak is not there from there. Well, by the way there is. But I like it, I like cilantro, and I really like it too. But I thought more that it was a machinarium mixed with such kinzes. No, not at all. Rather, it's not even a machinarium at all. That is, a machinarium. First of all, it's steampunk. We have cyberpunk. That is, we have technologies, they're artificial intelligence robots, droids, some mutants. These implants, you know, that's all. Everything is in the wires and so on. And they have it more, you know, like steampunk looks. And they have this one. With us, you see exactly how it is. It's more like a Primordia, you know, a Primordia game over there. This is closer. We have rather Navy on the Primordia here. If we take the quest here, then that's exactly from there. The machinarium is more like you know than it looks like mechanics with inventory. Yes, these items, how they are crafted and so on. And there, the
И
character's
там
movement is probably not necessary.
перемещение персонажа, наверное, и то не обязательно.
And it also
Еще
looks like this
похоже
is a
вот
chamber.
камерность.
That
Вот у
is,
нас
we
вот
have
эти
these rooms, they all look like, the
комнаты
locations look
все,
like.
они выглядят, локации выглядят как,
How do I say
как
this?
сказать,
They have such a
срезанный
cut,
такой,
you
знаешь,
know, like illustrativeness. This is what
типа
it is in the
иллюстративность в этом
Machinarium
есть.
too.
Вот в
And
машинариуме это
that's
тоже
why
есть.
many
И
people
вот
see
поэтому
it as
многие
if it
видят,
looks
как
like a
будто бы
machine shop.
это похоже
In
на
fact,
машинариум. На
this is
самом
not
деле
the
это не
case.
так. Вот
Look at the
посмотрите
Primordia,
Primordia,
there's more
там
like it, it
больше
seems to
похоже,
me.
мне кажется. Хотя
Although this is
это 3D,
3Ds,
а то 2D
and then
уже
2Ds should also not be confused.
Нам
We
на
were told
игропроме
at
сказали,
iGrowprom
что
that we
у
don't
нас
really have a
не
3D
совсем
game.
3D
Can you
игра.
imagine?
Ох,
It certainly
это,
was
конечно,
fun,
было
yes, to hear.
прикольно, да.
Not quite
Слушать.
3D well,
Не
you
совсем
have an
3D. Ну, у
incomplete
вас
3D
неполноценная
game.
3D игра.
Well, how is it incomplete?
Из-за того, что
That
там,
is,
из-за того, что
because
там
of the
тупо
fact
3D
that there are
карты
no
все,
Piber
вот эта
cards here of this
система,
whole system. This is not
это
a
не
full-fledged
неполноценная 3D
game.
игра.
Here comes
Здесь или
hind painting.
хендпейнтинг,
You seem to be too,
ты вроде
right?
тоже, да,
There's a little bit in it.
немножко,
Maybe not
ну, не
even a little
немножко,
bit. Well, you
ну,
know,
понимаешь,
that's 3D
что
quite
3D
itself.
вполне себе.
But they said
Но
it
вот
was so
сказали так,
cool.
прикольно.
But by the
Ну, я,
way,
кстати,
I
думала,
thought that
что
you
у
had
вас
3D
это
only
только
separate
отдельно
objects initially when I looked.
изначально, когда смотрела.
This is completely
Это
3D. In
полностью
some places
3D,
there are certainly
кое-где
plans,
есть, конечно,
but where there are
планы,
no
да,
plans,
но где
take any
этих
3D
планов
game.
нет.
There
Возьми
are
любую
trees, there
3D игру,
everything is on the
там
plans,
деревья, там все
well,
на
often
планах
very
участвуют.
much.
Даже в
Even take the
ту
same
Зельду возьми,
Zelda,
там
there
деревья,
are
там
trees
планы
there.
все еще.
There are plans still with the
Сами
alpha
каналы,
channel,
вот эти листики.
these leaves are there. Although I do
Хотя я
not
не
know,
знаю, вот
maybe
может
they are already doing it
уже
differently, in
делают
all
иначе,
sorts of
вот во
super
всяких
modern
там
ones there.
суперсовременных там.
It's hard to say
Сложно сказать,
honestly, I
честно,
won't
не
say.
скажу.
And by the
Кстати,
way,
сам играешь
are you playing something yourself now, or well, judging by the classic genre and the classic game? How would you like your preferences to remain in general there somewhere in the 2005 conditionally? Or are you playing now too? No.
Нет.
I generally
Я
played quite a
вообще
bit, but there are
играл
favorite
мало
games I
довольно,
just play
но,
more now. But until some
есть
point,
любимые
I
игры
didn't
просто.
play at all.
Сейчас
Somehow it
играю
stopped.
больше, но до какого-то момента вообще не играл, как-то остановилось это.
Because the
Потому
computer
что,
began
ну,
to be
начал
associated with
ассоциироваться с
work,
работой,
you know.
конечно.
And when you sit
И
down to play for the
когда садишься
KPC,
играть за
it
компом,
seems
кажется,
that you
надо
need to
работать на
work
самом
in
деле.
fact, something like that.
Что-то как-то,
Well,
ну, в
in
общем,
general.
такая
This is the
тема.
topic,
И
and
как-то я для
somehow I
себя
discovered
открыл
Nintendo
Nintendo.
for myself. And opened it.
Причем открыл
We have
не
never
когда
had
он
a
спор
sport
на
on
Nintendo
Nintendo.
появился,
And when the
а
Gothic came
когда
out,
вышла
I
Готика.
just adore the
Я Готику
Gothic,
просто
and when the
обожаю.
Gothic
И
came out, I bought a Nintendo because of the
когда
Gothic.
вышла Готика, я
And
купил
I
вот
went through
из
the first
Готики
and
Nintendo.
second right now.
И
I
я
took the
прошел уже
cartridges there
первый
for a
второй
long
круга,
time.
тоже
There
взял
was
там
such a way
полный
for
такой
these
круг этих
cartridges.
cartridges.
We
У
did
нас
not
не
have
было
delivery to
доставки
Moldova, but there was
Молдову,
no
нет
Nordic from Estris on their
физической
website.
Нордики.
It
С
was
них
purely
сайте
distributed
писали,
there
что
through
там
Russia.
и
I
там
sent
через
my brother there
Россию
somehow.
ехал,
In
брат
general, it
отправлял
took
там
so long.
как-то.
Well, it's
О,
hard for
вообще
me
так
to even
долго.
write to
Ты
you
же
Nordic.
THQ
They said
Nordic
like,
я
oh,
написал,
we added the
они
address when I
сказали,
was
типа,
already
мы
sent from
добавили
Russia
адрес,
there.
когда мне уже отправили из России там.
Well,
Ну,
in
в общем,
general, I was very
я
glad
очень был
that they
рад,
released
что
Gothic
выпустили
on
Готику
Nintendo.
на Nintendo,
And
и
so
вот
I
я
went through these
прошел
two
две
parts.
части,
How, I don't
не
know.
знаю, прям
I really enjoyed it very much.
очень большое удовольствие получил.
I'm passing Zelda
Зельду
now.
сейчас прохожу.
Ah,
Прошел
I took
Ryzen
Ryzen
тоже
too.
взял.
This is
Это
also
тоже
from the
создатель,
creator,
если
if you
знаешь,
know. But this?
Но это всё равно
Still
достаточно
quite old,
старый.
well, Zelda.
Ну, Зельда,
Yes,
Да,
but Zelda is
но
newer, well,
Зельда,
and I also play
да,
Hogwarts,
ну и
as it
Хогвартс
were,
тоже играю,
but in Hogwarts
но
less.
Хогвартс поменьше.
There the
Там
text pisses me
меня
off.
текст бесит.
I
Я не
don't
люблю,
like when the
когда
text
текст
runs too
пробегает
fast.
слишком быстро.
I kind of
Я
play,
как
but I
бы
play until I get
играю,
tired
но
like
играю,
this.
пока не
In the
устал.
same
Вот.
Zelda, there's a
В
text
той
there.
же вот
You
Зельде
know
там
it's there,
текст же,
but when you want to
знаешь,
close it,
он
as if you have the
есть, но
opportunity
ты,
to
когда
close
хочешь,
it.
его закрыл. Как бы. У тебя есть возможность закрыть его.
And well, I do
А,
not know, in Primordia, by the way,
ну вот,
there is also
я не
such a
знаю,
joke
Primordia,
here,
кстати,
is an
тоже
awesome
такой игра.
game.
Вот игра
But due to
офигительная,
the fact that
но
the text
из-за
is
того, что текст
constantly
постоянно
rushing,
вот
it is
несется,
also very
тоже её
difficult to
очень
play it.
трудно играть.
We have
У нас вот
opportunities
есть
here,
возможность, вот,
you see,
видишь,
what we don't like, we
то,
don't
что не
do.
нравится, то не делаем.
Well, by the way, this
Ну,
opportunity
кстати,
was
это
very
возможно,
unobvious,
было очень
which you
неочевидно,
yourself told me that it was
я
possible.
сказал, что
I
Я
understand,
понимаю,
yes.
да.
But
Но
at the
в
beginning,
начале, вот
this
в
is at the
в
very
самом
beginning,
начале
you
тебе
are
дается
given a
подсказка.
hint. That is,
То есть,
when what
когда
you
то,
miss
что ты
just that is,
пропустила как
I do
раз.
not not know if
Я
you
не
would
знаю, если
understand it,
ты
but someone
поняла
understands,
это,
and
но
someone does
кто-то
not.
понимает,
But
кто-то
it does
нет,
not
но
matter.
не важно.
But here, in
Ну,
fact,
тут на самом
there
деле
was a
Подсказка
hint.
была,
говорится,
да.
It's a little that, well, now we are working with the creator, let's say, and testing is going on so much that everyone should understand. In short, if someone did not understand something, all right, that's it. Well, offer your own version, come on.
Давай.
I would probably do it at all by clicking and not sweat it. That is, and if someone did not understand something, well, show it at least twice there, show it again. And not, so I don't see the point. I don't see the point. Well, I understand. Yes, I understand what you're talking about. But I'm definitely not going to do two hints of the same thing. By the way, in Zelda there, they constantly remind me, yes, it's cool. But there you understand, the interface implies this. That's how they did it, built it into the mechanics, that it's implied there as if. It's going to be strangely simple here. But there is a slightly more complicated story, that you can assume that a person does not use this function, and remind her, well, remind the player of her only if he does not use it. That is, if a person never points there, well, does not click, does not point, does not perform some action, then you are like this to him, and you know, you actually have this action, if you don't. It still needs to be tracked somehow, and I'm not really a programmer. I'm a programmer, but here, as it were, you need to contact a programmer. And he will say this function is not particularly needed here or otherwise. Well, maybe, and maybe. But it's technically more complicated. Of course, yes, it needs to be tracked. No, well, this is tracking, I think, yes, such as it is unclear how it is. I don't even have an answer in my head, but in general I understand you, yes. Well, I'm just in general, like I said, I'm a good cop here. I like everything I'm here. Even we communicate more than I discuss the game, because I want to rather just show how cool it is. And urgently we all run to play the first episode, download, by Cherry Leaves, and everything in the world is just well. Even a cool game needs to be conveyed to the viewer in terms of clarity. And you can't get away from the fact that now more and more, well, the gaming industry is becoming so widespread, and people are not well-versed. Not ready for the fact that they didn't understand something there, and they need to figure it out. Not ready for the fact that they are not prompted anything. That is, it may not be very cool for me, and gamers of my generation, no matter how it sounds. Well, that is, I'm ready to figure it out, but many are not ready, and that's why I always at least try to point out that something is wrong somewhere. You know, look at one moment, pay attention that the more text there is, the longer this die closes. That is, there is enough time. Here at Hogwarts, what's the problem there? There the text is right very quickly closed behind the curb or in the same primordia. Here, if there is not enough text, it will close faster. If there's more text, you know, it depends on the number of characters. This moment is already humane in fact to the player. But yes, I understand. Well, there is a hint, so I kind of remind you of that. Not well, it seemed to me that it was still fast, as if I had time to read slowly, right back to back, conditionally. That is maybe strange. Here. But on the water, just on the water, yes, and there are a couple more questions from our colleague, also a developer of laws, then dear, as far as I am. If this is not the full namesake, of course, so why is the cartoon style a toy setting at all? And then you brought Star Wars there in your references, and that's it. Well, it's all enough in a more serious style. And Star Wars is not a cartoon style, is it not a cartoon too? Well, not that much. Well, not so much, there's just more of a movie, and here's a game. And I like it, we like it, but Hanning really likes it. That is, if the cartoon style is what? This Han painting turns out to be a drawing, right, this one. Shapes so that the shapes are plump, so round, so everything. Not quite like that because we have stylization, you know, like World of Warcraft, that's something but. And there is some kind of direct reference here on the visual style, that is, the machinarium, did you say? No, we generally have our own. Somehow it didn't even look like the Second World War, that's the point. It worked. We've been looking for a very long time. We have one first. It sucked, to be honest. Sometimes when I look at it now, it just hurts, it hurts to look at it. but now it looks really well, so we like it, you know.
Так что нам нравится, понимаешь?
We are
Мы
very
очень
sensitive to the scrupulous
трепетно
attitude to
относимся
art.
скрупулезно относимся к арту.
This is such a
Это
sin. Yes, we are sinful,
грешок такой,
sinful.
да. Мы грешны.
But it's fun.
Но,
It's fun.
Это ж прикольно. Прикольно же.
And another question is why don't you use 3-dash locations? And by the way, I'll bet here, it is used, but it can be used more than. So that the location somehow turns slightly more volume to give. I understand that we probably have this limitation here, yes.
Наверное, это ограничение у нас такое, да.
Sometimes some locations are outlined so that you can turn, and some locations are outlined from the camera view. And if you turn, then well, there may be a bit shorter.
Там может быть бяка, короче.
So,
Так.
but in principle it could be implemented, but it's just superfluous, let's say more complicated.
Это просто лишнее, скажем так, сложнее.
It's harder to do that.
сделать, вот, чтобы
How much more complicated it is, you understand it should be
понимаешь,
required.
оно должно требоваться.
If you make a
Если,
game like
ты
we,
делаешь игру
you will
типа
outline
как
it from
Wolf,
all
там
sides
по-любому ты
anyway.
будешь обрисовывать
And here, as if it is not required, it is a point click. That's why it's like this. It's just conditioned by the genre. That's it. By the way, the point of clicks in 3D is in fact already something closer to the Myst series. Are you familiar with the Myst series? No, I'm generally honest, I didn't play very much. I recently discovered a lot of different point-and-clicks. But I played mostly that's what I listed, and I'm learning you know how, so I'm saying that there was a certain image. And I didn't play at all. Why? Because I haven't had the opportunity since childhood, that is, and when she appeared it somehow, I don't know. I went to study then something else.
А когда она появилась, оно как-то вот, не знаю, учиться пошел, потом еще что-то.
Well,
Ну,
in
короче,
short,
оно как-то
it
вот
somehow passed
не
me by,
выделялся.
all
Всё
these
прошло, все
games,
эти игры,
but I
а
wanted
хотелось
you to
что-то.
understand. And I
И
started
наверстывать
catching up
начало
relatively.
относительно.
Ah,
А?
you can always catch up already in general.
Да, да,
Yes,
я
yes, I
наверстывать
started to make
начал
up for it.
именно
Well,
вот в
lately.
последнее
I
время.
mean, I'm
Я
saying I'm
больше
playing there
играю,
now.
там, я
I
купил
bought an
объект,
Ambernick. I
обожаю
love this kind
такую
of thing.
штучку.
You know, right?
Большое, да?
Here you can
Тут
run,
можно
yes,
запускать,
run Nintendo from all the
да,
old
запускать
consoles
с
here.
Nintendo,
You
с,
can run toys, their
с всех
N64,
консолей
PlayStation
старых
1.
таких.
Well,
Можно
a lot of
запускать,
everything in general.
игрушки, там, N64, PlayStation 1, ну, много вообще.
Even
всего.
in
Даже из
companies
компаний,
that have
которые
games,
там
they're like
были,
Turchu casts Wolfenstein.
Wolfenstein,
Then the
потом,
same Fallout can be run from the boards, by the
Fallout
way.
можно запускать,
You can run.
DOS, кстати,
That is
можно
cool
запускать.
in general.
Круто
And
вообще.
now
Вот
it's
всё это
all
можно, вот то, что
possible.
я
Here's
пропустил,
what I missed once.
когда-то.
Now I'm already
вот
studying because,
изучаю
well,
уже,
now
потому
it's
что,
possible. As
ну,
if,
щас
I don't know
можно
before,
тут,
as if it didn't
раньше
work
как-то
out,
не
there
получалось.
was no opportunity. They interfere with your lack of gaming experience in development. That is, after all, my opinion has always been that in order to develop, you need to play well, at least somehow.
Не
No,
мешает. Ну
it
как не
doesn't
мешает?
interfere
Знаешь
as it
как,
doesn't interfere. You know how you made a
вот ты
mistake,
ошиблась,
started
начала
doing
делать
something,
что-то,
right?
да?
You learn
По
along the
ходу
way
учишься
and
и по
polish all
ходу
these mistakes along the way. Correct, correct.
шлифуешь ошибки все эти,
And you're
исправляешь,
learning this.
исправляешь, и ты так
And
вот
again,
учишься.
we have the
И
lowest
опять же, у
one.
нас же
I
ниша
already
выбирается
understand the
уже
point
на
and clicks.
point-and-click'ах.
It's not a
Не
fact
факт,
that
что
I'll
я
take over
возьмусь
there.
там за...
Well,
Ну, еще
even in the
гонки,
races,
гонки
I
тоже
did the
можно
races
сделать.
there too. It's not a
Не
fact
факт, что
that
я
I'll
возьмусь,
take it
вот
here,
ты
you
видишь,
see
больше
more on
по
platformers.
платформерам.
I'm not a
Я
fact
не
that I'll
факт,
make
что
a
сделаю
normal
нормальный
platformer.
платформер. Мне
I'm going to
придется
have
учиться
to
так же
study the
самых,
same way
ты
you've been
училась
studying
с
since the
самого
beginning,
начала.
like, well,
Ну,
in
это
general, a
логичная
similar
история.
story. But I have a huge gaming experience. I played with all my might and collected everything. I understand.
Я понимаю.
That is, it helps me a lot, and that's why I asked, what I think I would hardly have done without this experience. No, no, I have you know what kind of thing I'm a fan of how to say it not from scratch but from nothing, as if to do something, you know. When you roughly speaking have no paints, find a way there and paper.
Вот когда у тебя, грубо говоря, нету красок, найди способ там и бумаги.
You know,
да,
there's
тут
basically
нет
nothing.
ничего.
And do something, so you find a way, and from this it's even cooler, or there I do not know, well, in general. How can I come up with a long time from a sketch to a bunch to draw there? Think over, think over.
Как бы могу долго придумывать, вот эскизов кучу рисовать, там, продумывать.
That's
Вот
exactly
именно
what I like to bathe in
нравится
this in creation.
купаться вот в этом, в
And
созидании.
I
И
think
я
that's
считаю,
how
что
you
так и
learn in a
учишься
sense,
в каком-то
and the
смысле. А
affectation it
наигранность,
goes
она
in
идет
parallel
уже
with this.
параллельно с
That
этим. То
is,
есть
you
ты
don't
не обязательно,
necessarily, I
я
think.
считаю.
As if,
Как бы,
yes,
да, я
I agree
соглашусь,
that
что
I
я
won't
не
do it
сделаю,
if I don't play the coolest quests
если
there.
я не
I
поиграю
won't
там
be able to understand some of the things
самые
that they
такие крутые
implemented there.
квесты, и я не смогу понять каких-то вещей, которые они там
I
реализовали.
agree with
С
that,
этим я
yes.
соглашусь, да.
But it's still going
Но
to
все равно
work out,
что-то
right?
получится, правда?
I
То
mean,
есть,
you know how I get it
знаешь, как оно
intuitively.
у меня получается? Интуитивно.
Here,
Вот.
probably,
Наверное,
it
это
could have
должно
been
было
said
сразу
right
быть
away like
вот
this,
так.
and
И,
that is, there is
то
some
есть,
idea, and you are already looking
есть
for the
какая-то
best way to
идея,
show it.
и ты уже ищешь, как
That is,
лучше
you look
ее
for the best
показать. То
solutions.
есть ты
Then you
ищешь
sweep away, if
лучшие
something happens after a
решения,
while, and you
отметаешь,
polish it like
потом,
that.
если что-то
You also
спустя
polish
время
it with a
говоришь, и вот
script,
так вот
you sweep it
шлифуешь.
away,
Точно так же
sweep
со
it away,
сценарием,
then again,
отметаешь,
then
отметаешь,
again you
потом
sweep it
снова,
away.
потом снова
Well,
отметаешь.
so as not to be on the
Чтоб не
knee,
было на
roughly
коленке,
speaking.
грубо говоря.
And in a point click, it turns out to be in some of the most, so you say the most point clicks are these. What kind of games did you play too? And I, by the way, I didn't play Disney. I'm saying that I'm not really. I recently discovered this one. What is it called? This game is now. What is the name of this toy? I really like the old one. According to the intent click, they are basically all old. The most recent surge of them was in the days of Daedalic. Bennett Steel Sky, do you know this toy? Click there with a robot and with a dude who walks. There's a very charismatic robot there. I liked it so much, that's how they did it. There this robot is simple. Here we don't have one. I agree with you that you need to see such examples in order to somehow do it all. That is, we had such a moment that all the characters are kind a little bit. And my friend kept telling me that there was something like that with them. They all look like you or there. Well, I'm not saying that I'm kind. It's just that they all seem to look like me. And I realized that yes, we need to work on the characters here. We need to think through all these how. In general, the characters should be different. That's how she's so cool in this game. I don't know if you played it or not. Well, I just. There is an old clip, they're still on DOS this game was that is. It is very old. It is very cool, considered legendary. Now it came out there. The British did it. Here it is already at 3D. There is a game right there. Well, modern. And it is also on Nintendo. I haven't played it yet. Well, that's how it turns out. You know, it won't do anything. But it's like this for me. You name some more global games, that is, you're there for something more niche anyway. I won't call it no. You see, you're testing my knowledge. It doesn't come from my knowledge. It somehow comes from the image of someone. And this image is slowly improving, being refined, and so it goes from the root, roughly speaking. No, well, maybe it's even better. You're not really attached to anything. That is, you are too. Now this image, do you know what it looks like? It looks like a ready-made base for some kind of game like Gothic. It feels like this because it really could have been. And such a world would have already been built on it. There's this city, then these settlements, Crocoli there. I have a map already, you know, everything is thought out there, where something is really interesting. But on mine, I wonder if someone might not. And all this is also already painted in the sketches. That is, the third episode is already partially over. And I know what the last location will be at the very end, you know. That is, it's all going to be assembled. This puzzle is going to be assembled, then it all adds up, and this is very Borzo. And already in the course, yes, of course, the first episode, he will lag behind from this point of view. That is, it will lag behind both in terms of quests, but in terms of implementation. And the subsequent ones will most likely be better, in my opinion.
Вот в плане реализации, да. А уже последующие, они будут, скорее всего, лучше, на мой взгляд.
Well,
Ну,
I
я
have
уже
already
объяснял,
explained the
чем
better.
это лучше.
That's
В
basically how the
самом
pitch is better,
подаче
you
лучше,
know.
понимаешь?
I'm just distracted here. I've picked up so many things, and I don't know where to put them. Oh, are you here
А, ты
already?
уже здесь?
Me.
Я что-то...
I don't even know how you passed the
Ты
first
прошла
level.
первый уровень.
And the demo, by the way, is for a long time. That is, I played for quite a long time. It seemed to me that it should end. The demo is
Демка
not
нет,
short-lived at
недолго
all,
совсем.
but
Но
it's
она
like,
как,
you can get
ты
stuck
можешь
a little
чуть-чуть
bit in
застрять
the
в
first
первом, но
one,
вот здесь уже
but
не
you
застанешь.
probably won't get stuck here anymore. And what do you want to
Это
finish
хочешь
faster?
быстрее закончить, да?
No, but I'm looking to the end if I'm going to play. That is, we just have. Not here,
Не,
not for
здесь
long.
недолго.
You can? You can try to apply the background board. Yeah.
Ага.
We just have the first developer that I had on a visit to roast, he was tired. And he said, and yes,
Да?
he said that it would be very cool to have a time limit. And now I am. I try not to play to the limit. Well, I'm not tired, so it's okay. But I'm still thinking. Uploaded some kind of videos, no one really got them. Oh, that's right. It's more interesting that we discuss everything and, as it were, in this regard, I asked the main questions more. But in terms of frying, I thought that today, well, after the new year, I don't want to somehow fuck anyone here especially, yes. And say something. Wrong. I mean, I was lucky, right? Yes, yes. Well, here I like everything. I'm actually surprised by some of your answer that you're without, well, without obvious examples. Because I'm more like how to say. Look, we have an int and click, it doesn't matter to me at all what this image is going through. Well, it's just that the genre was chosen, and I'm already going through it. It was possible to choose any one in fact. Well, there you could have RPG role-playing, yes, here's the Gothic, and there would have already made some progress. But in fact, like a good click here is a good way. And now it is considered that he is like, yes, by clicking he is irrelevant, is there something there? But in fact, I don't have such a thing, I have these dying genres, this is generally nonsense, because yes they can. They are not in demand like this now, but then what depends on that if that's why they are not in demand at all now. Because large companies, they are not profitable for them, yes, they want their appetites to increase and increase and increase. And it doesn't give them a click. They used to do it, yes, by clicks too. Now it is impossible to get such amounts out of a click, but this is understandable. And it's clear that I switched as attention switched to other genres. Well, there are modern AAA genres there, yes. And in my opinion, that's the idea in general, that if some very, very cool click comes out, imagine, will relevance return?
Если выйдет какой-то очень крутой point and click, вот представь, вернется
What do you think?
как ты думаешь?
I'm curious.
Интересно.
Well, here comes out one other third there.
Третий там.
In the 2009, they turned the die to leaky. That is, the peak point of clicks was back in the shaggy years. When I was still walking under the table, like in the 90s. What are you talking about?
Что говоришь?
And what about the dialects there? This, in the 9th year, they released several games in the 2009th, that is, they're in a row. They had point clicks drawn so cool with animation. Japan, the most basic thing is the truth. Japan, yes, they have. And they still had projects. They have the most, it's Japan, yes. Well, it seems to me. Here, the most. Here. There was nothing like that after that. That's what I'm saying. Imagine that it's cooler than Japan, and it comes out even steeper, even steeper. Is the genre going to die? No. It's just that they don't really take on it, somehow it's not really. Well, as you said, that pulls the dark side, right? That is, many people go to the mobile Kim dev, there is someone, something else. Well, in general, I think this topic is kind of understandable. But this is mainly due to the appetites of large companies. It's here in my opinion. Well, the full shot after a few step-by-step ARPs, that is, they push the audience in fact, it seems to me. But for us, I think yes, this is a good example by the way, for us it's good, we're India, we're niche. We have to take something where exactly where they look at all these companies, right? For us, it's like a plus, where else can we go? You can look at it like that. Let me tell you, you need these bolts, see there. Well, here's how to get them. I do not know how to get them. And yes, this is a question. So I realized that they are not needed, but I have some bullshit. There is a hint there. If you drag objects, there will be a hint. Come as it were and drag objects. So, I dragged the wrong item. And I don't see me. Says it won't help here, it won't help here. Yeah. Well, tighten the power unit, for example. Did he say something there? What is it? It's nothing here. Or maybe use magnetic soles. They are not powerful enough. What does a magnet create here? He's a mechanic, you know, a game about a mechanic. Inductors. Oh, and that it is necessary to power the inductors somehow, probably. University. How to power up? What does it take to make it a magnet? But from the fact that I have only a power supply here, well, a screw. There is this power unit, right? Pull it to the reel. So the power unit is straight with a coil. Oh, well, listen, I wouldn't have done it to be honest, it's necessary to remember. University course. Who is not Dopadori, he already, as it were, by the method of poking, usually finds yes. Well, there are a lot of items to poke at. I tried it. I tried to share them all with each other. So here I can randomly or I don't see it. I see you as if in the past. But I'm trying to put something on a dress right now. Something complicated puzzles of some kind. And well, maybe yes. Not well, this is a mini game, it should be a little well with a string anyway. Not well. Imagine that everything is easy well, imagine just for a second. Then they will say the game is short. Rather, what kind of logic should I have here? I do not understand. That is, usually a puzzle. And here, in any case, it is necessary to collect. Well, logically, yes, it is also necessary. Look where your power goes, look where, logically, you should have a keyboard there, right? The button is somewhere else there. Not well, logically, I'm not obliged to understand electrical circuits conditionally. Of course, I studied something there 10 years ago. But that doesn't mean that I am. In general, there was a discussion of this puzzle in the Steam, there in this community. And there is one person there. He just logically came. So he thought about where the keyboard could be, where the monitor is. That's where the monitor, in your opinion, should be. In the middle. One could not understand, he also tried to poke. And someone guessed, well, where should the monitor be? But I hit him in the center. Oh, right. Well, and the food. That's me, by the way, honestly. I'm just. That everything immediately goes into this inventory. All the elements of the type I clicked, and he disassembled everything for me. But only in a different way. If you have it wrong, how do you do it differently? But I want to remove one item alone. But no, it won't work that way. Here. We don't have enough, let's say, professionalism to make such mechanics. But in fact, she is normal. And it didn't work. But the cooler, I'll tell you, needs a fan. That is, it doesn't have enough fan. At the radiator, yes. Well, I don't really like the story here that I can't remove one item. Because here I realized for sure that I have power, then the monitor, let's say. Well, I may misunderstand, but it seems so to me. And here you rather know how, if there's a mistake,
Здесь
then it
скорее,
all
знаешь
flies
как,
off,
если
yes.
ошибка, то оно
Well,
всё-таки,
yes,
да.
this is
Ну да,
strange.
это так.
That's exactly it. Convenient. You didn't combine, did you, a fan with a radiator? Radiator. And there, listen, it was not visible that there was not enough of it there. To be honest, it can also somehow make a hole straight. Well, I mean, there's a grill, and it seemed to me that it was basically a radiator. And you know, you probably don't play enough of these games with me, because you usually know how people play, who play these games here. They immediately try to combine everything. About them it's on the machine practically. Well, that is, I think it's bad when they try. They must think logically, and combine exactly what is needed at once. I played a lot in the clique. It seems to me that I have outplayed all the main ones that were in general. Well, I mean, without any completely niche ones, but all of which I heard, I played everything. And I even had games like On a Scam Return, where the craft consisted not of 2, but of 3 of 4, and could be made up in different ways. And there has always been a logic that conditionally you need to collect a fishing rod. There, let's say it's clearly a stick, well, something hanging, either a fishing line, or some kind of vine, or a thread or something. But we also have out of 4, out of 5, there is also yes, there is such a thing. But us. Sometimes, the logic should be straight iron. Not well, there is logic here for people who are friends with technology a little bit, but with the details there anyway. It is there. Logic. But just 4. I'm like someone who understands a little bit about TV and radio mechanics, as if I understand, that's the point. And it is possible for a player to do this. For some players it is difficult, yes, I agree, but they will look. Well, I do not know, it is somehow implemented here, nothing is needed anymore. As if I do not know how to fix anything here, given that it's well, here's such a minigame, you know. No, well, I figured it out, it just seemed to me that well, not that. What? Have you collected it? Yes, yes, yes. I can't say that it's not clear. There is no need to understand the circuits directly in order to understand everything. But it seems to me that I would give at least a couple of hints there, like you know, so that the color matches. Well, it's clear that these are stupid things. Well, conditionally you have. So that's the point, that's the point. How can I make it so that it is logical? Well, that is, it's not stupid, it's not strange, so that's how to do it. Well, I would probably. Here I just read that like 2 items you help the player to put, and he puts the rest himself conditionally. That is, 2 items. You tell him stupidly that yellow to yellow, well, you don't tell him you're dripping paint there conditionally. And then he will just have fewer options, and it will be a little easier. I would maybe do that. You're in favor of making it easier, right? I am in favor of making it clearer, and the player is definitely not stuck for more than 15 minutes, because in general, even in difficult games if. I noted another opinion in general, that's exactly the average, that we have the opposite of the game. The game is easy, and it passes quickly. That is, someone does, it happens. But mostly people are like the opposite. And when it's exactly a difficult puzzle, they still passed it, they are sofu. But they're happy, you know, anyway. That is, I would not cancel this moment in a point click, especially with a puzzle. This is the same casual element, it must simply be present, that is, well, like this. But I always have a solution for this case, that if it's stupid, then give me a hint. Well, it seems to me that this is also no longer invented by me. Yes, we have it in some places. In some places we have right here. But this is at the very beginning of the first episode, we have such hints there. That when if you haven't thought of it for a long time, then hop a hint. That is, it was at the very beginning, when there was still training yet. And then, why just like that? Well, yes, I agree that this is probably not a modern genre. Okay, well, I like him, I'm doing something like that. First of all, so that I like it? Yes, it probably sounds strange. But first of all, the main thing is to change and then. But we listen. We definitely listen to the opinion, that is, there are a lot of ideas in the game, not only from the community, but even all sorts of drawings on the walls there in the first episode. You know, right. We held all sorts of contests there. Well, that is, someone helped to implement some mechanics there at all. Was there such a thing? Not well, listen, when I say something to simplify, I probably mean it. Maybe I'm expressing the idea incorrectly somehow. I'm not even trying to simplify it. I just know how much you can lose the audience if you haven't explained something enough to the player sooner. You're worried about the loss, but do you know how we are? Seriously, do you know how we are? We have people passing by in one breath, and then they want more. It's such a thing. And they are at the end of the first episode. It is the first episode, so although there are very stuffy puzzles there, where there are even illogical ones, well, it happened. Well, there with maps, especially we have there. You know, have you seen a card game? Do you mean in the first episode? Yes, in the first episode of the map. Do you remember? Well, I don't remember. But there was something, but I'm telling you, I passed when he was already out a year ago. There's a joke there that you can't beat the game at the beginning. There it is necessary. But how would he be a cheater there, you know? And you need to stop playing with him. And when you start playing with him for the second time, he says, this one says now I'm going to deal the cards. That is, and now it is already possible to pass. That is, imagine how it is for a player who you are afraid to push away. Well, like a modern player, as they say. But it's hard for him. Well, that is, yes, so it's not funny at all in a sense. But like this. It's like... I don't know, it's already been done that way. I would like to, well, would I change it now? Oh no. We simplify some things, yes. For example, in the first level, do you remember this level? The dungeon is the prison, remember where he wakes up there? At the very beginning. And there used to be a door, there was a door, and there was a window here, it was necessary to find a window on the door. That is, a small selection, inside a large selection, there was both a door and a window separate such as triggers. So we then removed this one, you just need to click only on the door because a lot of people were looking for it and couldn't, it seems you too. I couldn't find the window either. What I was looking for and didn't find. Yes. Here. Of course, we fixed this moment, but then, well, yes, it turned out to be some kind of nonsense. No, by the way. It's like when you can't. In the old Dust games that one is active. Yes, but there's another one in it. But now you just need to click on the door, and he will climb on this window himself. There is no need to look for anything because, well, a lot of people just couldn't find it in this when this is so yes this is, and here you just need to figure out whether I don't know. Did you pass? I just passed, yes. Well, don't listen. I even figured out the conversations. It's not that difficult. Yeah. But again, I don't really focus on myself because I actually, although I often say that something needs to be simplified somewhere. And I'm not trying for myself anymore, well, I mean, it's not for me that it needs to be simplified. I went through all the places with an intent click. I solved all the most difficult puzzles there. Of course, maybe it wasn't yesterday. But still, well, in the same 2010, some kind of yes. But it's hard to surprise me with some kind of straight unsolvable puzzle, but... Yeah. But as it were. No, I agree, you see, it's like that. We don't. It's like I can't implement everything perfectly. I understand this perfectly, as if I'm trying to develop in any case, but well, thank you for the advice. Anyway, how would I? Especially if you stopped right there. But there is such a moment that, yes, we still have a limitation of the possibility in any case. That is, there is something here that you understood in this puzzle, and there you say exactly the hints, yes. It's better there, that's how I was able to implement it in this way. I don't know how to implement it in any other way. I wanted exactly such a puzzle, and that's how it turned out. How is it different here? By the way,
Вот,
you know,
кстати,
we're going
знаешь,
to look at how they'll
будем
still
смотреть,
talk
как
when,
еще
well,
будут
people will
говорить, вот
play.
когда
And we're going
будут
to
играть
look at the
люди будут
opinion,
и
how they'll
будут
generally
смотреть
come
мнение,
there.
как они будут там
Especially here in the
в
walkthroughs,
прохождениях,
well, all sorts
ну,
of such
часто
things often
появляются
appear.
такие штуки.
If
Если
it really
действительно вот
happens
повторится,
several
да, несколько
times,
раз
at
подряд,
least that illogical people
что
can't find it, then it's
нелогичные
worth
люди
it.
не могут
You
найти,
can
то
even
тогда
change
стоит,
something.
может даже поменять что-то.
That is,
То
I
есть
don't
я
see a
не вижу
problem in
проблемы
changing it,
в
but the main
изменении,
thing is to find a better
но
solution.
главное,
There is
чтобы
also a
найти еще
moment here.
решение
Well, I
получше
see.
тоже момент.
But you're talking about
Ты
colors.
говоришь про
It is also
цвета,
impossible to simplify much then. Yes,
да,
that
да,
too.
это тоже.
It gets lost, as it were. A click implies that you need to think, and if you tell me everything, it will also be bad, as if I'm not in this area rather. But how do you conduct play tests at all? Who do you have? That's who you're focusing on. Are you giving out to all your friends there? Friends.
Друзья, да.
Yes. Friends, and
Друзья,
if there were
есть
quite a lot of
довольно
people who want
много
to,
людей,
that
которые,
is,
кстати,
test.
хотят, то есть,
That is,
тестировать.
how many
То
10
есть,
people there
сколько
will
там,
be
человек
exactly
10
typed,
точно
so they will
наберется,
give
вот, и
feedback,
они
yes.
дадут фидбэк, да.
Relatives also
Родня
play
тоже
their brother
играет,
sister.
там, брат, сестра.
Grandma. Like? No.
Нет.
If Grandma figured out the puzzle, then the puzzle is clear. Oh, right.
А, так?
Well,
Ну,
no, there was no
такого-
such
такого
experience.
опыта не было.
All the grandmothers I
Все бабушки,
know,
которых я
they are
знаю,
against
они
computer games,
против,
they think that if it is drawn on a computer,
или
it
они
means that
считают,
the
что
computer drew it,
если
right?
нарисовано на компьютере, значит, это компьютер нарисовал. Понимаешь, да?
Well, I have it. Well, I'm
Ну,
not
я
saying that
говорю, что
everything is
все,
everything,
но
but I come across
мне
it
так
like that,
попадается.
yes. What?
Что-что?
If you could explain to your grandmother, well, how to play your game, then everyone will understand. Like the very person to whom if you reached out, then it means. You can see it here.
Видишь,
There is a catch
тут
in
есть
this very
подвох,
thing.
в самом вот в этом
Here in the sentence itself, already look, explain what to explain.
объяснить, что
What?
объяснить.
What should I explain in the game
Что
if
надо
it is
объяснять в
playing?
игре, если она
The game
играет?
should explain,
Игра
not
должна
you, right?
объяснить, а не ты,
And you mean the
правильно?
game,
А, ты
right?
имеешь в виду игра,
Well,
да?
yes, the game should interact with the player so that he. Yes, how to play it conditionally. But Grandma
Ну,
won't be
бабушка
playing
не
point
будет
click,
играть
most
point
likely.
click, скорее
It
всего.
seems to me that Grandma will first of all play point click because the only thing she knows how to do is just point and click, well, in the sense of driving and clicking with the mouse. That's usually harder for people who don't play at all. It's harder for them to control a character somewhere in 3D there. God forbid, with a gamepad it's generally difficult there. Conditionally, my mother can't look around and walk at the same time, that is, if at 3D. That is, she needs to look around with one stick, well, either with the mouse and walk with the other, or with a crosspiece. And this is for a person who does not play at all beyond her control. And in point click, just the same, and grandmothers, and mothers there, and aunts, and everyone in the world. Here you probably know, I probably agree, I probably have a sister in general, you can let her play and see if it doesn't pass. It usually always passes, as if she doesn't play games, but not that, and my brother, in principle, also plays less by the way. But if they pass, then most likely everything is good.
Если они проходят, тогда, скорее всего, всё будет.
Well, it's harder with others already because you most often don't see the reasoning there's something else there. Well, it's not like ideally you know when a person is playing right in front of you or when you talk to him, so you see how he
Идеально, знаешь,
plays.
когда играет человек вот перед тобой прям, или когда ты с ним разговариваешь, вот. И
Well,
видишь, как он
yes,
играет.
yes.
Потому
Because it somehow reveals the most here, right here, you see right straight away, it becomes somehow
больше
clear
всего
that here
выявляешь,
and
вот,
here it
ты
sags.
вот видишь,
And here it is not clear there.
прям сразу как-то понятно становится, что вот, вот здесь проседает, а вот здесь, непонятно, там.
When you see exactly the stream of the passage, it also helps, but it is no less, as if a lot of thoughts remain with the streamer here. With a person who, as it were, when playing with you, he will say everything, you know.
Который как бы, вот когда при тебе играет, он скажет всё.
That's how you're talking there now. Well, you get the idea. No, well, I have. Well, it is. It's all good, it's just that I would maybe be happy to find fault with something, but there's not much to it. For me that. What I said is not that it was difficult for me. I'm also talking to you at the same time. That is, if I played it only in it, I think I would have skipped it quickly, that is this. If anything, I agree with everything, and I don't have anything that I have there, I have an internal objection there. Everything is fine. No, I'm not. It's just that from this point of view I am. We argue, yes? Yeah. I'm thinking. Well, and that there is nothing to find fault with at all. Maybe to something. Listen, I would only find fault. K. Just once. Not well, probably the only thing you absolutely did not train the player, that is. It is clear that some basic mechanics like click, and the character will go, they can be so basic, that it seems like you don't need to tell about them, but in fact. No, I taught it. I taught it at the very beginning of the game, when you just launch the game says click. And that is, I was just very fast apparently, and didn't even notice. When you're on the logo, as in the Machinarium here, as you took yes from there, the game tells you to click, you click, and the logo starts to animate there. And that's the explanation. In other words, you have already clicked, you already understand that you can click further. That's it. Yeah. Not well, maybe it's too little, but in general. Maybe yes. It may not be necessary for anyone, but somehow minimally I would still show it. Because there are people who come from other genres there, let's say, or from mobile gaming at all, and it's still necessary for them. It can be disabled, for example. You can first ask if you want me to tell you or not, and then the player will say I don't want to. I myself know that I can click and drag objects like I already know, that is, in principle it's optional. But it seems to me it should still be. Here. Well, it seems to me, have already been prof-deformed, because I have interacted with the audience a lot. I understand, yes, I understand. Therefore, it seems to me that it is necessary to explain everything to everyone at all times, and if you are really worried, then just ask if you want to study or not, and then the player himself takes responsibility for whether he will read your tips or not. Maybe in some game we will add something similar. Well, where it's straight, you know the mechanics, as I said, that's how it's justified in Zelda there. They implemented it so straight into the interface, it's fucking simple. And there are these hints, they are not superfluous, and there are a lot of them. It's very difficult. And I remember playing, yes, it's very difficult there. A bunch of combinations are just unreal. And you can't always remember, but there's always a hint. I mean, you're almost always, not always. By the way, not always. Sometimes you forget something, and there is no clue. Zelda still. It's okay. If you left Zelda, like you left Zelda, didn't play for a week, you came. Oh yeah. In general. Yes. Therefore. Yes. Of course it's easier for you here. But still, there is a basic need. You remember, and that helps, yes, even if you're gone for a week. The main thing is to remember this database and everything else. You know, there's a moment that works here when you know, as I always told students for such a thing, that it's not necessary to put it in a blender when you study. Yes, it's not necessary to memorize every tool, every chip there. Every function does not need to be memorized, that is, at the demand level. Look as if, and just know that there is such a thing, and that's it. And then you seem to know that there is such a thing, you will already find it somehow. That's not good when you don't know. Imagine you don't know about the function at all. And you get around there with some workarounds or crutches, right? And when you know, and even you don't remember how to implement it. This is where Zelda has such a moment. That is, you remember that there is such a function. If necessary, you will already find how to do it. Well, how to get it. In any case, you'll find this. Here, I will ask a question in the chat at all. They ask if there will be an update of the first part with voice acting. But I would reformulate it a little bit. In general, are there any plans to add something to the first part, so that there is a reason to get acquainted with it additionally? Or maybe retry it, or some kind of bonus for fans there conditionally? Well, when the second one comes out, yes, and like to do something in the first part, additionally voice acting, or something else. The first part in general, we would like, here we are, when we look with an eye already. We really want to make a remaster of this visually art. This is for any kind of things can also add and correct. But at the moment, from such shortcomings in my opinion, this is the one that needs to come closer. You drag the object somewhere on the trigger, and the dialog box says, like, come on, this is a game. It says that you need to get closer, and so many people are furious because of this. But it's such a complicated thing. In this case, there is a dependency, and the programmer does not know. We do not understand how to implement it at all. Here we have already added, and there was a problem with the achievements added. That is, we added a bunch of everything already. But we don't know this thing. It's the only tank left in the process. Well, if not the tank, this is such a flaw. As for the voice acting, I would like to, of course, but it's very expensive. That is, I don't know. We recently submitted one idea to hire some actor who, let's say, is a beginner, yes, and who will not ask too much. I don't know how reasonable it is, but this idea is in principle kind of normal if someone knocks or someone is in mind like this. Well, maybe or somewhere.
Не знаю, насколько это разумно, но вот такая идея, она в принципе вроде как нормальная. Если вот кто-то постучится или кто-то будет на примете такой вот, ну, может быть, или где-то
Well, maybe later.
попозже, может
Maybe we can add such a voiceover if we find a person.
найдем.
By the way, I can advise a little bit from my bell tower. It's not necessarily a voice actor. You can look for people in related areas who want to do voice acting of games like. As an option. Among the vocalists, among the announcers, among some YouTubers who write something on camera, and, accordingly, their voice is set well. Well, that is, they know how to talk and are engaged in voice. Those who are engaged in vocals, for example, they also have a voice set simply because, well, the technique is about the same to talk well. To own their voice, and also there are interesting voices among people there. That is, I have a trailer voiced by my vocal teacher. There is also one guy who was interested in voicing games with cool in a baritone voice so hoarse. That is, a person came just to sing. Well, of course he has some data and an interesting voice, and often these people are ready. Well, if not on enthusiasm, then I am. If they are ready for a small fee, then I am only glad. But it's just that now there is still such a moment that it's from Russia that we have now completely blocked all opportunities. Now this is still a difficulty. Here the Golden Crown was closed there. Everything is already trying for us. This is our beautiful president trying very hard to infringe on, let's say, all of us, but this is a separate topic. It's like if it turns up, if we agree, damn, I'm just glad. There is still such a moment that here we are. I tried to do several tests there through the neural network. It seems to be quite good there, but it's still not the same. I don't want to add a low-quality one. And it turns out it will only be in Russian anyway, because with English it's well understandable, right? Well, and more expensive. That is, in any case, it's only in Russian and more expensive, and well, someday, if everything works out, well, everything will be right beautiful for the money, then why not? It is possible to translate into at least all languages. But the main thing is these two in theory. Russian, English, there are in theory these two. So, well, basically a question. I answered all the questions. Well, yes, we have no more questions. I probably think we're going to wrap up a little bit like this. I'll say again that the game is cool. And urgently we all run, and by the first episode in the Steam. Here's a demo of the second episode. We go through looking for buggies and help the developer find them and fix them accordingly. That's in terms of roasting. We will be glad. Today is a good roast. Today everything is cool. That is, I would just be a little bit friendlier to the player. And communicate more with him again. But in comparison we have already sorted out 2 games this season, so let's say, yes. In the season of roasting. One of them was a visual novel, where nothing really needs to be explained at all, and the second one was also in the space theme. So let's call it Action to Survive. There was much less interaction with the player, as if everything might not be so scary here. That's why, in principle, I would maybe just go a little deeper into the game designer thing here in terms of communicating with the player and explaining mechanics, puzzles, characters, and so on to him. Well, that is, how to interact with it all in general. And so everything is very cool. The art is cool, the animations are cool, all in 3D. I liked, by the way, the idea from the chat that you can use, if not 3D turns, then at least 3D gives you the opportunity to do all sorts of different lighting. Well, because you have 3D planes, and maybe something to play with it. And you can conditionally change the impression of the location with the help of lighting. Oh, about that, by the way, in the second episode, there will be a shift. The camera will rise there. I don't know. I showed some things, but it will be a spoiler. There are moments like this. We have more of a dynamic in the second episode. And there are places where the camera goes right up, or looks to the side. There are some such things. That's exactly what you're talking about, right? Well, yes, it's easy to use what is there. It seems to me, why not? I just work at 2D and naturally, I can't use it. But you can, because you have 3D, and why not use it here? I say it's justified by the genre, that's the genre, but although on the other hand, I agree, yes, it would be possible. But that's if they, you see, looked good from all sides. We don't have it everywhere. We have such a thing that you look, and there's a lot of it. Everything is not finished at the back, but there is only beautiful in front. That is, there is such a thing in fact, so yes. It is with us as you know, like a stage in a theater. Well, yes. Behind the scenes, there is clear that. So, well then, in principle, I think we can finish for today. I hope that the audience liked the game, and again we are running to buy it here. Because I am. My soul just really wants me to have good games get more attention than I can actually, so here's my little vacation. Thank you, by the way, yes, thank you for the cool tips. Well, there weren't so many of them because everything is cool here without me, and I'm even like an artist. But I can, of course, start the anatomy. Thanks for that too. Disassemble. But it seems to me that it's so not important to analyze the anatomy of the limbs of the character there. Because the style is something in general. So many kind words roasting right. Not well, it just doesn't make sense in this. It's clear that there, let's say you have on your main mouth. Even if you start to disassemble the character from the point of view of anatomy, that he is drawn incorrectly, but it doesn't matter. As if because the style as a whole is sustained, and well, it's not even particularly visible to me. Here you just see, it's cartoon anatomically, there's nothing there, and we have animations, by the way, they are not perfect animations. They are like in The Simpsons, you know, this is the style. Well, yes, they are a little simple, but it all looks very cool. That is, I don't want to find fault when everything is whole. That is, if I start unwinding every cog now, then there is no point in it, if everything works perfectly and looks good. Here. So I praised it again. Thank you very much for coming, for telling me everything like that. You're so sociable, because developers rarely talk so actively about their game and the team and themselves in general. And you have to pull something out there. Here. Oh, so. And what is there to hide here? That's why I think the life of indie developers is so interesting, right? Not many introverts. All right. You know, but I'm also partly some kind of introvert there. Then it turned out that there wasn't then, you know how, when I had to teach. I already think that I'm an introvert, but it's unclear whether I'm an introvert. I made a mistake. In fact, I'm an extrovert. I just didn't communicate it for something. Okay, good. I'm stopping the broadcast. Bye, everyone. Everyone. Yes.